Zappa.
Here.
All present.
Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda, review and approve the minutes from the prior meeting. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting of December 2nd, 2008.
I would move that we approve the board meeting minutes dated December 2nd, 2008.
Is there a second?
Second. I already indicated a minor correction to the secretary.
All right. And what was the nature of the correction?
Delete the word care in the on the next to the last page of the minutes, second paragraph, beginning with the word Klein. Be the end of the second sentence. Eliminate the word care, C-A-R-E.
So noted. Any other changes or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Comments from the floor? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing. The public hearing is for the purpose of repealing and recreating the section of the municipal code, Chapter 98, which is an existing long-standing part of the municipal code. It is actually driven very much by the DNR. And as they update things, they require municipalities to do the same. Fair enough as a summary? Okay.
About 2 years ago, they really updated those standards a lot. A lot of the municipalities used to just say, well, we just adopt whatever the DNR wants us to. We kind of make a general statement like that.
Okay.
And they updated their regulations quite a bit.
Just for purposes of the audience, this is Terry Dunstan, attorney with Bonnke Norman, and especially happens to be dealing with DNR-related issues, among lots of other things, but he's also the drafter of the particular ordinance. Okay.
Could we ask Terry to use the podium?
Sure.
Because
Right.
they can't see or hear you from where you are right now.
Let's see, we'll start the public hearing. I need a motion first to begin the public hearing.
Also moved.
Okay, Joe, is there a second?
Second.
All right, then we need a roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
Okay. Jim?
Here.
Tony?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Larry, yes. Okay. All right, we are in the public hearings. We'll have public comments. Terry, I think it probably would be advantageous for you to explain a little bit. I think there are really three questions. Why are we dealing with this topic at all? How does it change from what was before? And what would be the negative consequences if we said, oh, the heck with it, we're not going to do this?
Say that last part again?
What would be the consequences to the village if we said, oh, the heck with it, we're not going to do this?
Okay. The first question had to do with what is this all about, and there's a national riverway along the St. Croix River, which most of you probably know, and it's controlled by both the federal government and the state government and local governments. So they all have a interplay in what can and can't happen along the riverway. And about 2 years ago, the DNR, who is the regulatory arm of the state, so the state essentially recreated all the regulations for the riverway, or not recreated, but they updated them and significantly beefed them up and required municipalities to pass new ordinances to match the new regulations. So that's basically why we're here, is because the DNR is requiring all municipalities within the riverway ordinance, within the riverway, to pass an ordinance on this. In the past, the DNR allowed, as I was explaining to Larry just a little while ago, the DNR used to allow municipalities to simply make a sort of a very simple statement in their ordinance that just said, well, we adopt whatever the DNR says in their regulations. And the DNR about a year ago decided that wasn't good enough and just sent a memo around to the municipality saying, no, you've got to adopt an ordinance according to the state regulations. And so that's what we've been working on for about a year. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question, I forgot.
How does this language differ from the language we currently have?
Yeah, I sort of explained that in the beginning, because what North Hudson and many other communities used to have was just a statement that referenced NR 118, which is the DNR regulation. And so the new ordinance is 46 pages long and goes into great detail about what can and can't be built and how close you can build what on what slope and what you can't put near the river and how far away from the river you have to be and that sort of thing.
Well, the question would be then is what's different about this versus 118?
It mirrors 118.
Okay. No change.
No change, except that in 118, there are certain areas where it just says the municipality shall pass an ordinance, but it doesn't say what you have to do. So, for example, minimum lot sizes, sometimes that's defined for you by the DNR, and sometimes it's not, and it's up to you.
So as a practical matter, we're just simply writing off longhand the ordinance that historically we've always said we adopt this
I
ordinance.
think that's accurate, yep.
No more enforcement requirements? No additional enforcement?
There wouldn't be any additional requirements over what's actually in NR 118 to begin with. There may be, that you need to enforce things that you didn't enforce in the past, but you should have been. I can't answer that. If you catch my distinction there. We're not adding any regulations per se, but having them in your ordinance may make them more visible to people and may raise the expectancy of you to be enforcing what was there all along.
In this particular ordinance, as I was reading all 47 pages of it, I was kind of looking for one thing called the normal high water mark. And although it makes reference to it in terms of things have to be so much in front of it or behind it or whatever the circumstance might be, but the actual definition of the term and how that's established, I know that the state had modified that definition several months ago. But that has nothing to do with this
No, other than that it
particular
refers
ordinance.
to it,
Right,
the ordinary high water mark, yeah.
okay.
This doesn't define it.
Okay.
Terry, I noticed quite a few, I'll use the term vagaries as in here, things that seemed, okay, I understand the concept, but it doesn't seem very specific. To wit, this is on page 12, item 2A in section D. One single-family dwelling per lot except mobile homes, and one residential garage, and one accessory building. Now, when I think about that, I'm thinking about somebody building a beautiful home on the St. Croix River, putting up maybe a 3-car garage and another accessory building. There's nothing here that says how large it can be. There's nothing in the sizes of it. And so to me, that is what I categorize as a vagary.
Sure.
Now, I'm not asking you for the specificity of it, but it just seems strange. Then I
Let me say one thing to that real quick here.
Yeah.
This is an overlay ordinance,
Okay.
so it overlays your existing zoning. So if your existing zoning happens to cover that already, whichever is more restrictive would apply.
So it's relying on our individual village ordinances for a description of the size of that
It could.
residential garage and
If-
accessory building.
If the existing ordinance has that, right.
Okay.
Plus, there is also there's built the uniform dwelling code and things like that are gonna come into play when you're talking about how big a building can be and how many windows it has to have and how big they have to be.
A couple of the comments,
Yep.
my comments and questions relate to experiences that we've read about regarding dwellings that were built along the St. Croix River and had to be reduced in size, had their top half cut off, and so on. So I take you to page 19. Page 19 has a few there's a common theme here of my question. Item A, no part of the structure protrudes above the bluff line when viewed from, at, or near the midline of the river. Now, there wouldn't be an ordinance from the village regarding the middle of the river. Likewise, D, the structure is visually inconspicuous. And then C, down in number 7, the sign is not visible from the river.
Yeah.
And again, the vagaries here. The structure is visually inconspicuous. Are we talking about the winter or the summer? I look about the vagary in C as the sign is not visible from the river. Well, where are you standing in the river?
Sure.
And I'm not asking for it to be more specific, but it just seems, hey, we don't write ordinances that have to do with a sign that says keep off private property, but yet, according to this,
Yeah, I guess I don't have a good answer for you, George.
Okay.
The main answer I can give you is that this tracks very, very closely the NR 118 regulation, and although I can't speak exactly to that part because it was almost a year ago that I did this, I tracked the state regulations just right on through.
Oh, no
and
doubt.
then
Yeah.
I was back and forth with the DNR lawyer for like 2 months, being very picky about, oh, you got to have this in there, you got to have this in there, and things like that. So
I just want to ensure that
Yeah.
someone who wants to build a beautiful home along the St. Croix River builds a foundation only to find out that, oh, you violated a vagary
Yeah.
in this new ordinance.
Well, I think that is going to be your enforcement, of that. So when they come in, they're going to come into the planning commission and with their plans, and it does require certain steps about how a person gets to build a building. So if you're talking about a brand new building going in on an empty lot right now, they are going to be fairly restricted.
Seems like it. Thank you.
Yeah, I looked at this earlier too, and the question that I had was, how do you know where the bluff line is?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, from a geometrical point of view, you can have some sort of a rise and then a fall or whatever it is, but where is the bluff?
I'm not sure.
That actually is defined.
Is it? Where?
There is a degree, it's in the same language. The only reason I know this is just because of the two issues that we had
Uh-huh.
here in the village, as to how does a building inspector determine where is the
Okay.
bluff line?
Mm-hmm.
And they actually do have a methodology that
Okay.
they're instructed to follow.
Okay.
It's kind of like when, now it is very similar to the high water mark. That's been defined.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike in the past, it is now has a degree of subjectivity to it. And it can actually vary from lot to lot.
Yeah, it is also defined, if you go back to the earlier part of definitions, and you go to B, bluff line means a line along the top of the slope preservation zone. Then you go to the slope preservation zone, and you read the definition of that, and it gives you some percentages of where the bluff line slopes
Okay.
toward the river.
Okay, that's helpful. All right.
In reality, it doesn't matter, because the DNR guy comes out and tells you what the is.
A question that I would have is, say going forward, somebody requests a variance for a residential garage, and we see no need to not grant that variance. And Mike, obviously, with Planning Commission to address future issues, is our decision okay for them to proceed, or is that just that the village approves it and then the DNR and everybody else involved has to approve it afterwards?
I'm not sure of the answer to that, so I'm not sure. I will say this, though, that a variance is something very specific and generally isn't dealt with by the Planning Commission, but by some kind of a Board of Appeals or a Board of Adjustments or something
Board
like
of
that.
Appeals.
Board of Appeals.
Yeah, and there are fairly high standards for when, I mean, variances are presumptively not supposed to be granted. So a variance is when somebody comes to you and says, well, I want to do something and it's not allowed in your zoning code, and so I'm asking for you to actually break the zoning code and let me do the thing I want to do, and so I'm going to present a case to you for that. And the presumption is against variances, as opposed to conditional uses or special exceptions. Are they called conditional uses in North Hudson, I think? So conditional uses are more the Planning Commission's area, and they would more readily grant them. You know, you would more assume, yes, we'll grant a conditional use as long as there's nothing wrong with it. But for a variance, you're on a different standard. You have to prove you need it in some way based on the physical limitations of the land.
Well, this is what we as a board do run into if somebody presents a hardship
Yeah.
that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
We need to know that if we do grant a variance, that we are not doing something improperly that the DNR would not
Yeah.
approve of.
Well,
Yeah.
that kind of raises the one point that I was going to make before. As you read the first 41 pages of the 49-page document, it talks about land usage and those types of activities or structures, et cetera, that can and cannot be, appropriately built within this particular geographic area. And then you get to start, and then you start at, I think it's really at 42 and 43, which speaks to the fact that there is in fact a process where someone can request a variance because sometimes there are legitimate reasons for doing so, whether it's here in the village or in one of the bordering municipalities. Either one, it doesn't make any difference. But there is a process whereby individuals can request a variance, which would then be the Board of Appeals. And I think everyone recognizes the Board of Appeals is independent of this board. In other words, if you go to the Board of Appeals and you get a decision, and maybe it's the decision that you don't want, you can't appeal that back to the board, the village board, because it's an independent legal entity that operates
Sure.
separate from us. And similarly, we can't approve variances as a board. Only the Board of Appeals can do that.
Right.
Okay, that's just the way state law has got all municipalities established. Okay. But I did notice in there that there was a significant change in the definition where it constituted whether it represented a significant hardship. And I think in the past they used to say economic hardship.
Perhaps, although that's not the current standard for meeting a variance. In fact, just showing that you could make more money on your land if you were allowed to do X instead of Y doesn't meet the
Right.
standard for a variance.
Right. As well as the criteria that the Board of Appeals would actually use.
Which is not going to change from this to normal zoning. I mean, there's still going to be that test that has to be met, which is the hardship test, that you have to show you've got some kind of hardship. And there's court cases on, lots of court cases on that in regular zoning, and this is going to be the same.
Okay. Okay.
There is an interesting comment, though, on page 44 that addresses a couple of the issues that we as a board have raised to Terry. And that is item 4A. All applications for conditional use permits, variances, and map and text amendments shall be reviewed by the department, meaning the Department of
DNR.
Natural Resources. So the department's comments shall be submitted to the village and included in the public hearing record. So it seems to me that whenever there's a question, that question will probably be answered by the DNR, who has to review the request for a variance long before it comes to us.
It's typically the way it's been done.
Yeah.
It's exactly the way it's
There's,
been done.
if, yeah.
Yeah, this really doesn't
Addressing
represent.
a lot of points that have already been taken care of. We've already gone through a lot of these things in real life, too.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Is that map that you have in front of you, does that reasonably articulate the size? When you look at the size of the area,
It's a little hard to see, but
it's essentially all of the village.
it's all of the village for sure. Well, no, it's not all of the village.
What?
It starts at Lake Malilu
Okay.
and goes part of the way in, but it doesn't go all the way back, and then all the way to the east, and then starts heading north, cuts out around some more, and then ends up with, I think, section 13 or 14 up there, and I'm not sure. That's kind of just a little beyond where they were going to build that grocery store up there. I'm not exactly sure how far up it goes.
In the township.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, the riverway, this border is gonna go way up into the township because, this is not a border that was drawn for North Hudson. This is from the larger DNR map that shows the border all up and down the Wisconsin side. And so I've just cut out the North Hudson part here for us to see.
Okay.
So yes, it definitely continues on into the township, but they would have their own, St. Joe would have to have their own, control up
But
there.
it's fair to say that some large percent of the village is
I think so,
included?
yeah, I think it's a fairly large percent.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking like, I'm just kind of curious, 80, 90%? That was kind of the impression I had from reading the legal description of the land.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can remember Gloria and I went over this about a year ago, where we talked about which road it went to and how far back it went on which road and that sort of thing. I can't remember exactly which ones it was, though.
I'm just struggling to see, why would it go so far into the village of North Hudson?
I don't know.
You should see some
Yeah.
stretches further south.
Probably 'cause it was Mallory.
Hudson, it's up almost in the industrial park.
You mean so far east, probably,
So far
right?
east.
Yeah, I
is
don't
what-
know.
Because it's, so far from the bluff line, so far, it just strikes me as,
Yeah.
Probably 'cause of Lake.
I had no input in drawing the map or
Yeah,
the
well-
borders.
just curious.
Yeah.
Other questions for Terry?
Come over the top to the east.
What was the third question? If we don't,
Very hard to conceive why.
I cannot answer that, because there you're just saying, well, what will the DNR do to us if we don't pass this ordinance? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I'm assuming it has some kind of negative consequence. So.
You don't get a fishing license.
You won't get your fishing license.
In all of their specificity, I just assumed that there was some draconian event that would occur should we
there's-
not do this.
In the NR 118, it says the village shall do this, and that it doesn't say what we'll do if you don't, so,
You answered the question.
yeah.
Other questions?
Was there something I read that the minimum lot size is 13,000 square feet rather than 15? Does that all pertain to our particular village ordinance? And is the main ordinance that covers this 15,000?
It's gonna depend on the zone, for starters, you have commercial, residential, conservancy, and so they're all defined in here. I can't remember off the top of my head what the definitions are of the minimum lot sizes, but I think that's around page
Check with
13,
our-
14, somewhere in there.
Remember, he said it's the most restrictive, so it depends what our code is too.
But we took most of those right from your existing code, too. Those are not
It's page
new
17,
numbers.
17?
13,000 square feet for one family.
and the real kind of hanging point has been the conservancy, which we didn't have in our code book as a minimum lot size. And so then he needed to come up with the minimum lot size for conservancy and width. And it's just a little confusing when you have parkland that's somewhat considered, it's considered conservancy as a use. But if you had a walking path, it would be 13,000 square feet. So that's kind of been what's hanging this up.
Also, the village is kind of unique in that you have two different zones. You have the small town management zone and the rural residential management zone. There are about 5 different zones. In your village, there are 2 zones. Most of the village is in the rural residential management zone, in the small town management zone, and that's where you're seeing the 13,000 square feet. In the rural residential management zone, which is just that part on the far north in section 13 and 14 up there, that's actually a 1 acre minimum lot size, I think. And again, those came from your zoning. They didn't come from the DNR. So that's where those numbers are coming from. With the exception of what Gloria and I, we went back and forth on the conservancy zone a bit. But your residential zone and,
Does anyone in the
Commercial
audience have any
district.
questions? Does it like to ask? It certainly is an open hearing, it's not
or
limited to
comments,
the
yeah.
board. Anyone else on the board have any further questions? Okay. If not, then I would, Chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Now we'll do a roll call vote to close the public hearing. Sandra?
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yep.
George?
Yep.
Colleen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Larry, yes. Okay. Public hearing is closed. If for no other reason than discussion, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt is it resolution?
Ordinance.
Ordinance 01-2009, Lower St. Croix River District zoning.
Is that your motion, Larry?
No, chair is asking for a motion.
I'll move that we adopt the ordinance 01-2009, Lower St. Croix River District zoning ordinance.
Okay. All right. Members of the board have any other questions or any?
I'll second his motion.
I already gave you done.
You did that, right. Okay. Well, thank you, Terry, for this epistle. I'll keep this at hand, reference this regularly.
I hope we don't. Okay. No other comments, questions? If not, then we have a motion to adopt this new ordinance, or the revised ordinance. So we'll do that with another roll call vote. Sandra?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Larry, yes. George?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And the motion is approved. Moving on. Plan Commission recommendations, chair update, and conditional use permit. Mike is here. Did you have anything from a chair update? Did you have anything under the chair update that you wanted to? Okay. Okay. Then I will just, in the interest of getting going, we have a conditional use permit request from Verizon. It's a recommendation of the Plan Commission to approve the conditional use permit to install an antenna on the water tower off Summit, as well as a small building that would be attached, or that would be below that. In addition to that, they're also asking for, this might be a point of clarification, what I would characterize more as an extension of that building, rather than calling it a fence. It's been referred to as a fence. Is that not a part of the issue at all? Pardon? It's a fence. Okay.
That's near the building.
Yes. And that's a part of your.
Yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to know.
All right. It would be helpful, I think, if you just gave us a quick summary of the issue and where we're at.
Yeah, the only item of business we had in December was the request from Verizon via the city about the cell phone antennas on the water tower with the associated buildings on the ground. We started it the month previous, but that was the right before the election, and we had a shortened meeting because of the usage of the building. So we tabled it out, but meanwhile, in that time of the tabling, Mr. Vavel is here, the representative of the Verizon, and D.C. Christopherson met with the neighbors who had some concerns, and they ironed out a lot of those concerns. And so what we state here on our recommendation to you is with the conditions that, and you'll see it later, there's proposals for lots of shrubbery and things for visual and sight blockage. And some of the neighbors who live closest requested a fence, and they had marked it off before. And so they're requesting a fence within those trees, or trees on either side of it, of a 16-foot length. And And one of the, and part of condition one, which I think is clarified in your version, I just have a draft here, is, talking about variances early, we only allow a 6-foot fence in a residential area. The condition was they would ask for a variance to put an 8-foot fence in. We at the Plan Commission thought that was a good idea. The only people who can see the fence are the ones who want it. But we were not making the whole thing condition on getting that variance on item 1. And then item 2 was just the other vegetation that's on his list there. The usual thing, the building will have one external light. We request full cutoff light so it doesn't shine light the neighbor's house. And building and antenna meet all appropriate codes.
Okay. The reason I was raising the issue before, and Bill, certainly feel free to say I'm totally nuts on this, but as I was driving over here from work and thinking about it, it seems to be the only issue here is, you know, the fence. Okay, the construction of a fence over 6 feet tall would require a variance.
Yes.
Which the board cannot approve.
That's correct.
Okay, only a Board of Appeals can approve that. Now, in the interest of, from my perspective, being accurate, when you look at a structure like that, I'll call it a structure, I don't think it's a fence. A fence is designed to either hold something in or it's designed to keep something out. It's usually of a rectangular nature, whereas this item, you could very easily walk around it.
It's a privacy fence.
So what it really is for the interest of the residents, it's a sound attenuation device, or it is a visual abatement device,
Yes.
neither of which are prohibited nor controlled by current zoning requirements.
Okay.
So my first thought was if it was my choice alone, I would change the word from the app. It starts with, let me just read the Plan Commission recommendation, because this is what the board would theoretically adopt. Fellow moves the Plan Commission recommend to the Board of Trustees the approval of the conditional use permit for Verizon Wireless, doing business as Verizon Wireless, to erect a specified antenna and building at 750 Summit Lane, property owned by Hudson Public Utility Commission, which, by the way, there is a benefit to the village for just doing this. The City Utility Commission, not the city as a whole, but just the water utility, collects revenue from Verizon for allowing them to put the structure up there. That, in turn, then gets applied to the water rates in Hudson and North Hudson. And we share equally in that, in the sense that we only have one water system. It's Hudson and North Hudson. So there is a financial benefit to the village to allow this to happen. And it's subject to the following conditions, the very first one. Applicant to erect an 8 by 16 foot long, I would take out the word fence and insert sound abatement shield, or any other word that you like. Which I think you could even technically say is an extension of the building, an extension of the structure, okay? Because it clearly is not a fence in the classic sense of the word. It only has one side. I can walk around it. It's certainly going to keep anybody out of the property. And I think the residents, and I don't see anybody objecting to that. And then the language after it, and to request a Board of Adjustment variance, that would not be necessary.
And as a clarification point, that's exactly what the structure, this thing was supposed to do, visual and sound attenuation. So that's exactly what the purpose of it is.
Right. Because if you were to look at that, if you were to just look at that not knowing any of the background on this, that can't be a fence. It's only 16 feet long and the property's 200 feet long. So how can you call that a fence? Plus I can walk around it.
It's true, and I agree with you, and I want to agree with you that that is not a fence. In the information we have here, there is a page with a picture of this thing that isn't a fence. Unfortunately, at the top it says, Trex Seclusions Privacy, I hate to say the word, fencing.
The
Material. That's the material they would use to
material.
build the structure.
Recommendation says or equivalent.
Okay. Would Trex, does Trex make this in an 8-foot high, they do?
That's the highest they can make.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So we're using fencing to make a sound deadening device?
Exactly,
Okay, that's all right.
exactly. Now, this was obviously just, my independent assessment of this particular situation. Bill, would either you, as the village attorney, or Kevin, you're pretty familiar with most of our codes, or Terry, either, would any of you take exception to what I just said and say, no, you are nuts, you can't?
I didn't say that.
Okay. Well, you certainly can, we're kind of more informal
loose.
here.
You know, it is only 16 feet long. It's pretty small.
That's right. That's my point, you can't call it a fence.
It's maybe
And
It's a sound, I think it's a sound abatement device, it is a,
We may,
Approval of your recommendation of this particular item with your redefinition.
to
I
the
would
ex-
have had no trouble, when we were discussing this, to call this a visual barrier.
Okay. Because that's what it is, right?
Yes, that's
It's a
exactly
visual
what it
barrier
is.
and it's a sound
Otherwise, it
abatement
would have been
barrier.
trees.
Okay. Do either of you have any trouble with us changing that language? No. Okay,
And the benefit of this is so you don't have to go to Board of Appeals.
exactly.
That's the whole thing.
And the residents get what they want.
Yeah, and the residents are happy.
Residents requested this.
Yeah, they request, and now that they see it, they're happy. Okay? I don't have a problem with the motion, let's make it again. There is a motion that's been made.
Commission scurries to their ordinance and because this day and age with all this
With respect to the Plan Commission, if you look at the other
potentially could
items
hard
2, 3, and 4, are they still valid?
Yeah, 2 is vegetation, and you'll see it on this drawing.
So
that
it
Verizon will put
has
it.
been incorporated in the plan already.
Yep, exactly like it's drawn on there, and now what we didn't see that you have now is he has the fence in there. He removed certain number of trees or bushes and put the fence in there with the trees continuing on either side of it, exactly what we wanted.
Okay.
Number 3 is the standard full cutoff light, hopefully that's what they'll put in, and number 4 is meet all laws, so.
Is Verizon then responsible for maintaining the shrubbery that's around here and maintaining it, or is that up to the village then?
Well, it's not the village, it's the city's property.
The city's property.
work.
And that's part of it, we pay a rent. That's part of it.
Thank you. That's the answer I wanted to hear. I didn't want to hear that it would be up to our Public Works Department to be out there twice a year trimming the bushes and cutting the grass. Thank you.
So item number 1 would then, if that were to be rewritten, would say applicant to erect an 8 by 16-foot long Trex sound abatement screen to be located approximately on the southwest corner of the property with 2 to 3 arborvitae planted at each end of the fence, at each end of the screen, sorry about that.
As per plan.
That's per plan.
The conversation was more around visual barrier and sound, and visual barrier I'd rather deal with visual barrier than the sound attenuation screen opens up quite a can of worms.
Lots of concrete.
All right,
Just call it
Visual
structure.
barrier.
Just call it
Then you have to start
structure
getting into
as
talking
per
about
plan.
decibels.
okay.
Do you want to
Structure.
have the manufacturer's name in there, or do you want to just say a description so that you don't have to use Trek?
Well,
The idea that it's a maintenance-free sort of product, which is exemplified by their product, is what we were trying to get at. And it has a 25-year warranty and things like that.
No, I understand that, Terry, but,
No, but if
No,
you just,
but-
if you put instructions on the plan, the fact that it's maintenance-free is nice texture to it, but if that fence starts to erode, the city has to take care of all that. It isn't gonna be,
no.
but what are you getting at?
No, what I'm getting at is, if you look at the way it's written, what Larry was just reading, TREK, I think what you meant was TREX. And then my next question, because you're describing a brand name for a product, and you just told me that you were just trying to show an example of what this fencing material would be.
Well, that is what we're gonna put in.
It's what you're going to put in.
Expected,
Okay.
that's-
George, does your version say or equivalent? Because I updated the draft notes of that.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
So then it's not, they're not tied into a specific brand, but at least you're getting into a specific quality.
I would simply ask, though, that if we're going to have that in there, that we spell it TREX, so that the record shows the correct meaning for our meaning.
Good catch, George.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Okay, so that section would then read, applicant, this is condition number 1, applicant to erect an 8 by 16 foot long Trex or equivalent visual structure to be located approximately on the southwest corner of the property with 2 to 3 arborvitaes planted at each end of the structure. Then you would strike in that sentence, and request to the Board of Adjustment, because you don't need to do that. And then the last sentence, denial of the 8-foot-high, blah, blah, blah. You can strike that as well. That's not necessary. And items 2, 3, and 4 would remain as is.
You might want to add Mark's word about per plan when you're talking about the thing, because now he's got it drawn on the plan.
That's
We
the
didn't have that
safest
at
way,
first.
just as per plan.
Right, along structure, as shown in the plan.
Yep.
Okay.
As submitted,
As shown in the plan?
Yep.
Okay. So that's fine. Okay. Now, Mark, with language, we can entertain a motion.
I'll move again.
Okay?
Second.
Who's got a second? Any other questions?
The only other
Comments?
question, in terms of setbacks and other construction ordinances that we would have, this meets all of that.
Kevin, it does, doesn't it? Yep.
It actually exceeds.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all questions I had.
Any other questions? All right. If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
All right.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay.
Just as a clarification, then, I don't need, I can withdraw my application to the Board of Appeals.
You don't have a fence.
It's unnecessary.
Yes.
All right. good deal.
you may not get a full refund on your money because it's already been published.
We never give refunds. In fact, there's a service fee that goes with it.
Larry? Did anybody in the audience want to comment on it? I think that's why they're here.
Thanks for your understanding.
Okay. Okay, moving on to,
Can I make one
Yes.
comment to Mike as
Yes.
planning commission? The distinction between what we were just talking about, fence and abatement structure, all that is I think really significant, because these days, in this day and age with the type of buildings going on and things, I'd only suggest to the planning commission that you get a handle on that, so that there aren't more visual abatements and as such coming at you that might be 10 feet tall or something like that, because to me it could lead a big opening in there for
And
some-
one reason we considered this one, it was because of the location where it's at.
Oh, I don't mind.
You
it at
understand
all.
that,
I
yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
a great way to handle a real
That's a good
situation
point.
without the Board of Appeals thing and all
Yep.
that whole process. I can only see somewhere down the line being a little bit of a can of worms if
Oh,
somebody wants to
We don't like
exaggerate
worms.
that a little bit.
Thank you. That was the only business we had this past month.
okay. Good job, as always. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to finance. If you turn to that section in your books, Finance Committee is recommending that we pay our bills. So the chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Is there a second to the motion?
Sandra said second.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions regarding the any of the bills or claims? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call. Sandra?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Larry, yes. George?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Bills are paid. Public Works?
No report.
All right. Public Safety?
You have the minutes from our last meeting, as well as the chief's report. If there are any questions regarding those meetings or the chief's report, this would be a good time to ask. The only other thing I have is a document that chief sent to us, to some of us on the, I think all of us on public safety. You got this, didn't you? Invitation to the meeting on January 14th. Notice of meeting agenda, St. Croix County Emergency Management Communications Committee will be held here in our village hall on the 14th at 9 a.m. Mark, is there anything you would like to say about this? It is open to the public, I understand. Is there, right?
Make a short comment. At the meeting, they'll be discussing a couple of changes that are coming forward as far as all emergency operation plans. The state has changed the guidelines related to the ordinance numbering system, so there's going to be some changes coming forward with our plan, which the Public Safety Committee has been working on for some time. They're going to be talking a little bit about that. They also have on the agenda some discussion about the North Hudson fire and how the operation plan and all of the functionality of bringing in that amount of manpower and departments and those types of things working together. Jim Fry is going to be doing a presentation, and I found out this afternoon that I'll probably be adding on some information on how the village responded to that particular event. So that is on the agenda, and I believe there is some discussion about mass notification as well at that meeting. There was some discussion 6 months ago from that committee on a particular piece of equipment that they were going to use for countywide mass notification. They had approached all the villages for some additional help with the funding of that. Basically, everybody said, sorry, we are all on financial shutdown as far as that goes. It went away, and apparently there's been some grant monies that have come forward, and it may resurrect itself, and that'll be discussed at that meeting as well. So quite a few items that may affect North Hudson, or at least somehow touch North Hudson, and ironically enough, they asked if they could host it here. They're trying to make that committee move around the county so it's open and more, I guess, they're going to get more people to come and participate in that particular committee.
With what frequency does this committee meet?
Monthly.
Monthly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, if I could make a request, I have been meeting with, is it Kelly from Hudson with the mass notification system?
I'm not familiar with Kelly.
The email that you'd sent me a while ago, I thought that was Kelly, but at any rate.
Casey.
Casey, thank you very much. The opportunity arose for us to have a great conversation. It sounds like they did secure $200,000 in grant money. So to the best of my knowledge, this will cost the North Hudson Village residents absolutely nothing. So with that being said, when I will not be here, I'm going to meet with him after I get back from a little period of vacation. I'd just like to make sure that that is the general direction that this is going. And just so the residents know, this system is more of a 911 emergency notification system, which has got incredible powers and will be beneficial in addition to our generic system that we're using. So that'll be great.
Sure, and obviously at the next board meeting or at the public safety meeting that occurs after that, I can bring back whatever information that's obtained and put a report together if need be.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mark. And just to let everybody know, public safety meeting is this Thursday at 5:30. Larry, I'd like to take a moment for something that has nothing to do with public safety, but since I got the floor right now.
You're not going to give it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you for your efforts in putting together the annual year-end communication to the village residents and property owners. I think it was very informative. It explains to the public where their tax money is, how their tax money is being spent, and what the thinking is from the Finance Committee on how we put together that budget and what this board approved. I want to thank you for all your work in that. It sets
Well, I'd love to take all the
Becomes a good
credit
form
for that,
letter.
But, there's a lot of people who would
Yes.
help author
yeah,
that.
we
so
understand that. But thanks. And
That's appreciated.
that ends my,
All right. Public welfare?
The only thing I have to mention is, again, a thanks for including in your letter the resident information form. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to reach out to all of the village residents to take a few moments and please fill out any information on that form and get it back to us that you can, so that we can keep our records up to date.
We can do it online.
They can do it online, they can mail it, they can drop it off. It can be done any number of ways, and it's very, very much appreciated. It will make our life absolutely blissfully wonderful. With that, I have nothing else to offer.
blissfully, huh?
Now or you want it later?
Okay. Park board.
On ours, we are continuing to discuss the possibility of a skate park at Summers Landing Park. We had, at a park board meeting last month, we did have some neighbors and some people interested in it. One of the neighbors who was unable to attend sent a letter addressing some concerns regarding noise, safety issues, of it being not supervised. And we are addressing those. The other communities that have small skate parks like this haven't really had a problem with kids being vandalized, well, a little bit of vandalism, but not as far as the safety of little kids using the park. The kids on using the skate park has not been a problem. There hasn't been problems with kids going down there to drink or smoke. And our Summers Landing Park is an open area that I don't think it really is going to attract kids other than those who want to skate. We have not come up with a complete plan yet. We're still working on it to see if it is feasible and where we want our park development dollars to go. After our next park board meeting, we'll get into more of the cost and the design, and with that we'd like the input of the citizens, especially the kids who would be using it, to help decide which type of equipment to use. So we will invite them to form a small committee just to help design it. And at our meeting also, Ron Derrick came to give us a little update on the park at Ridges, which now has met all the requirements and approvals and that from the DNR. And we won't be doing much with it over the winter, but come spring we'll have a site visit to try to decide exactly where to locate the playground equipment, a basketball court, and a walking path. And then the other thing, you may have noticed that we actually have a real winter this year, and there is a skating rink here at the Village Hall. However, there's no money in the budget for a rink attendant, which, for obvious reasons, there were other things that needed the money for the village. However, if there are volunteers who want to sit in the shelter, they're more than welcome to sit in the shelter, and they're not there to supervise the children. It's basically to supervise so the kids could have a place to sit inside and warm and make sure the building stays in one piece. So if anyone is interested in that, they can either talk to me or contact probably Gloria just to get the key. But otherwise, kids are welcome to skate there. There's a bench that they can sit down and change into their skates. So that's all we have.
Colleen, I have one question that was brought to my attention from a resident that a lot of kids, juveniles, get in a little bit of trouble, mischief we'll call it, and they get sentenced to community service. Would it be possible to see if that would constitute time for their community service work and,
Yeah,
see?
that'd be fine.
To do what?
You know, like if you get, if
To
you're a
watch
kid,
the
you
other
get caught
kids?
shoplifting or something, Mark.
Then to come up and watch the other kids?
You ever do anything wrong and want another chance at life? I don't know, unless somebody's got a problem with that.
Yeah.
When Colleen and I were discussing this, I had also suggested maybe Boy Scouts who are looking for badges. There are confirmation classes and a lot of churches that are looking for volunteer hours. So there are a number of possibilities. That would just be another one.
Right. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Okay, thank you.
Nice.
New business from the board or staff?
Yeah, before you move on, we came to hear what's going on with the skate park. And so I guess just to summarize, it seems like you're fairly well along with the decision to approve it. You're getting into a design phase.
Well, what we need to, before we can have it approved, we need to come up with the complete plan. And then if it gets approved, then it will get approved. But we can't ask for approval until we actually have the plan. And so we're still working on that. And we welcome the citizens to come to our park board meetings, which are, the next one will be Monday at 6:30. So if there's concerns or questions, please come to our park board meeting.
So now is not the time to express our concerns about having a skate park in North Hudson.
The board is not acting on it tonight.
Okay.
This is strictly an update.
Yeah, all right.
And what we try to do as much as possible is keep the primary decision-making, collect all the resident inputs at the operating level, at the committee level. I think people are a lot more comfortable operating at that level and providing input.
Okay, so it's when again?
Monday at 6:30.
Here?
Here at the village, yeah.
This coming Monday.
This coming Monday, the 10th. Or
Okay.
no, 11th.
Thank you.
Okay.
12th.
Okay.
Last month it was the 10th.
New business from the board or staff. I'll just repeat my call. Our representative to the Senior Citizen Center is no longer continuing in that capacity, so we're looking for a representative, although I am quickly falling into that same category myself. I haven't been able to identify any members here of the village or in the neighborhood who would be willing to volunteer to serve in that capacity as a representative from the village to the Senior Citizens Center. I can't believe that it would be a very time-consuming activity, but it would certainly be one that I would like to see us have a representative to for a variety of reasons, not the least of which we have been funding it in the past. It was suggested in finance, and I thought it was a great suggestion that we actually go to the Senior Citizens, or one of us, myself in particular, go to the Senior Citizen Center and see whether or not we have a representative from the village even attending. So, other than that, I don't have any comments. Oh, I did just have one question. Maybe you were going to deal with it. The election will be in April, obviously, which is the first Tuesday, which is also when we meet. So I think we normally push our April meeting back to sometime at the end of March. Okay.
Last Tuesday.
So I just thought from our planning purposes, if we might want to deal with that tonight.
I don't have any calendars.
If it's not appropriate.
But if you guys have a date, a specific date that you can identify, then yes.
Well, the election will be Tuesday the 7th.
Okay.
So we have to back that up to the previous Tuesday, which would be March 31st. Is that reasonable?
It's okay with me. Anyone else have any problem with that?
On the 31st.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. The 3rd is
Oh, I'm sorry, third and third.
March 3rd and March 31st. March 31st is the April board meeting.
Okay. Okay. We'll at least plan on that then. If something changes between now and the February meeting, we've still got time to change it. Okay? Did you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to announce that with the election coming up, there was a deadline for candidacy filing, which ended at 5 o'clock today. Our incumbents have graciously turned in their papers to run again. President Larson has decided not to run, and we do have one candidate who has stepped up to run for president, and that would be George Klein. With that being said, there will not be a primary in February because of that, so that we do not have enough. We just have enough for those positions, so we don't have to worry about the primary. And that's it. Oh, and I appreciated seeing all the young and older people skating out on the skate park, the skate rink. It's kind of enjoyable when you come to work or leave work or just kind of passing through to see everybody out there enjoying themselves.
Good. It's been a long time, I think, since we've been able to make ice.
We had some out-of-town guests recently, and they wanted to know if there was a place around here where they could skate. So they were willing to drive over to the cities to go skating. I said, well, let me introduce you to the skating rink right next to the Village Hall. And they came over, this is perfect. And so they had, the whole family was out skating, and it was, I'll echo what Gloria just said, it was such a joy to see them have such a good time in our little skating rink.
Terry Fillon did a really nice job with that.
Well, Gloria, say it a little louder.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said Terry Fillon did a very nice job getting that flooded and out here. It was very cold, but he got it done.
Yeah.
Terry's been flooding hockey rinks for a long time. For a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The chair is now chair would request a motion to convene in the closed session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to convene in closed session. That also requires a roll call vote. Start on this end again. Sandra?
Yes.
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 Joe? Larry? Yes.
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Board will just take a brief little hiatus here, and we'll be in closed session. That was at 8:03.